Hello and welcome to our series of Lent Readings for 2023, considering people who encountered Jesus. Today is day 38. Today we come to that moment when Jesus dies. And one man was standing there, and it had quite an impact on him. It's the Centurion at the cross. Being with someone when they die can be a powerful experience. Though at that moment, most of the cells throughout the body are still metabolizing. Something has changed. They're no longer there. They've gone from being a person to a body. From my past experience working in the health service, what relatives most often wanted to know if they hadn't managed to personally be there when their loved one died was firstly, whether someone was with them when they died. Secondly, whether they were free from pain. And thirdly, did they say anything? They seemed to place a great importance on any last words said by the dying person. As Jesus died, a centurion stood with him. It would have been obvious from crucifixion that Jesus' death was far from pain-free. He would also have heard the last words said, and seeing the way he died, it had a deep impact upon him. And we're going to read about that in Mark chapter 15, starting at verse 33. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing near heard this, they said, "Listen, he's calling Elijah." Someone ran and filled a sponge with wine vinegar and put it on a staff and offered it to Jesus to drink. "Now leave him. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down," he said. With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. The temple curtain was torn in two from top to bottom. And the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus, who saw how he died, said, "Surely this man was the Son of God." A centurion is stationed at the foot of the cross of Jesus, presumably as a deterrent to any followers who might consider a rescue bid. He'd no doubt seen crucifixions before, but something about this one stood out as different. He would have been struck by the darkness that came over the land, mirroring the 9th plague of Egypt before the final one of the death of the firstborn. Though as a Roman, he probably didn't make that connection. Then there were the words that Jesus cried out, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which Mark translates for us as, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Not being of Jewish heritage, the centurion may just have seen this as a cry of utter despair from a dying man, not knowing that Jesus was quoting the first line of Psalm 22. Had he known the psalm, he may have realised that it referenced much of what was happening. Verse 7 and 8 of that psalm talk about the mocking crowd who passed by, hurling insults and shaking their heads. Verse 16 pointed to the nails piercing the hands and feet of Jesus. Verse 18 referenced the casting of lots to divide up his clothes. Had he been trained in the scriptures, he might also have understood the final line of the psalm, often translated as "he has done it," but literally translating as "it is done" or "it is finished," the words that John records Jesus uttering with his final cry. The centurion understood none of this, but he didn't have to. As he watched Jesus die, he came to realize that this was not just another would-be revolutionary crushed by the might of Rome. This man was different, and his death was different. It leads him to exclaim the one line that he's famous for: "Surely this man was the Son of God." Like the story of the thief on the cross yesterday, you don't need a great deal of knowledge or understanding of Scripture or the Gospel to come to Jesus. Sometimes we might see evangelism as being about answering the big questions like creation, suffering, sexual ethics, the authority of Scripture, etc. Though it is important that we do wrestle with these things so that we can be sure of where we stand and why we can have confidence in our position, the most important thing that we can do is simply to point someone to Jesus and let his life and death speak. We can work all the other things out later. Until next time, have a blessed day.